series that ultimately ended up in the favor of GLuck. But the two teams right now, Feliz have arguably been on somewhat of a rise, while GLuck has fallen off a cliff since the Phase 1 ended, so...
Yes, certainly. GLuck was all the way up to 5th place. Actually dropped a little bit compared to Miracle right now. Almost the same. But can't really contest out of it, as Feliz, if they win with any score, and 3-0, 3-1, 3-2, they will be rising up to that 6th place. GLuck has to contest against that. I would also agree that GLuck has been slipping down a little bit in terms of their hero pool. They have been trying lots of the same, where Feliz was actually trying to develop the meta, trying to fit in and adapt into the newest meta of the 31.1 patch previous weekend. But right now in 31.3, maybe they will show something different tonight.
And I think if we think about it from a historical perspective, we can also... There has always been a trend in HGC Korea, and possibly also in other HGC regions as well, because once a team narrowly misses out on a clash attendance opportunity, then they tend to fall off in the stage after that. So I think that's what happened to GLuck. It happened to Mighty last year after they narrowly missed out on the Eastern Clash after losing to Tempest in the last week. They sort of slid down and were never really reaching the same heights again. Will GLuck suffer the same fate, or will they be able to bounce back next stage? And also in this match, we will have to see today.
Yep. Are we going to see that Relic Genji strategy once again in BOE? Not going to be the case for now. We're going into Sky Temple Game 1. Feliz bans Braxis, and GLuck has been continually banning Spider. I'm guessing maybe they want to work on their own rotation, as they have a bigger map, a snowballing map for the first game.
Overall, I'm of the impression that GLuck is a team that really relies a lot on Relic calling the shots on most matters that operating within the team, especially things like macro. And if Relic is indeed micromanaging all these players' rotations, then Spider Queen is one map where the players have to be moving around the altars so quickly and so many times that it becomes really difficult for one shot caller to make it all happen at once.
Yeah, this is basically the finals between these two teams. Whether they get to stay in the HGC for the next phase or drop down to the Crucible. Of course, if they win the Crucible, they will be coming back up to HGC Korea once again. But you never want to step down to where you were before this year.
To be honest, all the bottom half HGC Korea teams this year have been looking so very well-rounded overall compared to the bottom tier teams of the previous season, that I don't think any of the teams will fail to make it out of the Crucible and return to HGC Korea. But still, not a good feeling when you drop down to Crucible and you have to start fighting for your life, as opposed to fighting for a chance to attend the mid-season Brawl. Now, usually most teams would pick Genji here, but I think Feliz hesitated because, if I remember correctly, Feliz is 1-9 on Genji. They don't really have any good Genji players. As a team, they've never really shown an aptitude to playing around their own Genji.
Certainly correct. Frankel has 1-5 on that Genji. Aimer has 0-4. So combining that, 1-9.
NA math.
Certainly correct. I'm a math major there. 1 + 4 is 9. I can do that far. GLuck grabbing Tyrael, Malfurion. Seems like Ballistics having their rotations right here from GLuck. They have been changing their drafting style.
Indeed, feeling very much like a Ballistics draft. I was actually expecting GLuck to sort of move away from Tyrael and Malfurion, because they have played a lot of Tyrael and Malfurion in the over the entire season, but their performances on those heroes have not been particularly impressive. Tyrael is okay, I guess. They're 4-11 on Tyrael, not that shabby considering their overall win rate, but on Malfurion they're 4-13, so I wasn't expecting them to go for the Malfurion right away. I was actually expecting the Stukov, but instead it's Feliz who go for the Stukov.
I think they're trying something new here, as Blue Beetle's favorite, of course, Stukov. Grabbing 2 Overwatch heroes, does that secure you a win already in the draft?
I thought the client exploded when you locked in Hanzo and Genji on the same team, but apparently not. I guess it was patched out.
Well,
perhaps hotfixed.
From what I know, from the logics from the community and the chat, having more Overwatch heroes on your team guarantees your win somewhat.
So that's why they banned Tracer.
Yes.
Because that was an Overwatch hero that also pairs up well with Malfurion. Amazing draft going on from Feliz.
Yeah, so all they have left is D.Va and Zarya. And it's going to be tough because they already...
They could also pick Lucio, but Malfurion Lucio
Lucio's still 0-11.
Oh god, no. So Malfurion Lucio wouldn't make that much sense, so I guess they could still pick D.Va and Zarya.
But it's going to be Sonya, of course, the solo lane, and of course their favorite. They are going back to their old one, Greymane, to pair it up. A perfect one to pair up with, along with Tyrael, the entangling route from Furion. A similar draft of what we saw from Ballistics in Game 1, I think.
And GLuck Zeron, who is their offlaner, has historically in this season, like, Sonya is only his real good hero. If we're going to be really frank about it, he is somewhat of a Sonya one-trick pony. He was known for that prior to his debut as a pro, and it has carried on into the first season of HGC he has been competing in. To be fair, his Sonya is pretty relevant, respectable even. So overall, GLuck is sticking with what they have played for most of the season. Absolutely no surprises coming out, whereas Feliz mixing things up with the Genji and the Hanzo and the Stukov, really, because Feliz have never utilized Stukov all that well either. But now Malthael variant, this really is testing the limits of the very standard meta as we know.
Oh man, we have Varian, a buffed Varian actually, in this patches, if I remember correctly. And wonder what, very likely going to be Taunt as the only tank for the team here. But against the Sonya, Greymane can be a pretty tough when you're trying to pull off that taunt onto one target, maybe with the perfect silence. Maybe you're looking for that last right skill to end the team fight in that way. But once you waste so much, once you end up not getting the kill after spending so much resources, and that's where you just head downhill from there. That moment on, I think Feliz really has to focus on the target if they want to win the team fight or even get the kill along with that CC.
If they are indeed looking for the last rights Genji synergy there, then Varian will have to be very judicious about how he uses the taunt. Stukov as well, although he will be focusing more on his own survival more likely. And GLuck finishes off their draft with a Junkrat.
Of course, Overlord's favorite, I would say, as he loves to have that DPS.
Arguably
lots of skill
his
shot
best hero as well, right?
Lots of skill shot. Used to be Medivh long time ago.
A very long time ago.
Very long time
back
ago.
when he was playing in Super League.
I wonder, Medivh has been going through all the draft tonight. I wonder if it's just Korea, or we're going to see something different from the other regions, because Medivh was a lot more highly picked. And on this patch, Medivh is nerfed. So maybe it will continue in the other regions. Maybe it's just Korea who thinks, oh, Medivh has had a huge nerf on the Circle of Protection and the Arcane Explosion, so I don't think you can use him anymore. Maybe we'll see the continued trend on the Medivh, because Korea so far has been drafting in a different way compared to EU and NA so far.
Really looking forward to that clash of regional metas we're going to see at the mid-season Raw. And to be fair, to pick up on your point about Medivh, Korea has always been loth to use Medivh compared to EU particularly, so I guess they will probably look towards EU to see how they interpret the new Medivh and try to copy off that if possible.
Let's see. See, Watchtower not really getting any vision. Except for Frankel, who has been known as his Tracer play most of the time. Not even banned, but because of Malfurion, I think actually they were the ones to ban Tracer's second ban here. Frankel's getting chopped up, barely goes over the wall. And that's on a longer cooldown now on this patch, plus 5 seconds.
Really impressive how he managed to survive that. I expected Greymane to chase a little bit further for the kill, but as always, Relic, very conservative plays. Unless he's playing something with huge mobility, he rarely goes for the aggressive chase.
Having Greymane, of course, you go for that early timing. This is a different one as we have Genji just going to the top lane, making sure they buy enough time so that Marthael can just go with the camp here. We may be trying to contest, they are rotating in. They are trying to contest right now. Will be a tough one as Sonya is joining into the fight, but has to finish their camp on top, so Feliz will actually lose this one.
We get a sense of real deja vu here because this is exactly what happened in the previous series tonight, with Ballistic successfully invading that particular camp.
GLuck just having better understanding of what Feliz was about, what Feliz was doing, but with the silence, it actually gets a kill onto Greymane. Nicely done.
That was really well played by the Varian Stukov. Pretty easy pick off right there.
Oftentimes, GLuck was criticized for basically having too much in their rotation, always having 5-man against a stronger team. Because oftentimes they were scared to initiate the fight in their own. They were always falling behind, just responding back to the macro, the micro, the team fight started by the other team. But in this case, in this scenario where they have all this 5, they're using their perfect amount of resources in all lane not to miss too much anywhere, but also to respond pretty well.
I mean, if we think about it, this is venturing dangerously into the realm of pop psychology, but if we think about how most teams operate in Heroes, in Korean Heroes particularly, generally teams, after they suffer a series of losses, the shot caller generally loses his ability to trust in his own teammates. So that's when a lot of teams start to group up. And it's generally the shot caller who split pushes, or else a split push does not occur at all. We saw that a lot of times happening in the lower tier teams. We see that a lot of times with Miracle as well, when you think about how Sniper operates with the rest of his team. So I believe that might be the case for GLuck as well.
There was that early taunt with the silence, but already cancelled. It's not too long of a cooldown. Still has to wait for that moment. Greymane dives in for the extra damage. OJ is trying to survive. The silence comes in, but there's no healing. Has to pop on that switch. Does manage to escape.
Amazing job of keeping Varian alive by the rest of his team.
And meanwhile, Marthael actually gets the top tempo, so they will actually get a better trade. There's the silence with the Genji diving in, but lack of damage a little bit.
I'm really impressed with how well Yu is playing Stukov today. Prior to today's game, I don't think he was ever all that impressive on the Stukov, but today his silences have been on point. When I think of Yu, I really think of him as this really talented flex player who was sort of forced into playing support because everyone else on his former team was pretty bad at playing support, so he was sort of like shoehorned into doing it for the sake of the team. Very much like Hyde when you think about it, because Hyde was a very good flex player, but he was so frustrated that no one else could play support as well as him that he
That's
just
oftentimes what happens even in KSP Black. When even Merryday was there, he was always willing to play some DPS or even tank for the team, but he was always saying there's no one as good as I am on a support, so I guess I have to do it.
Right, so I think that's the story of Yu as well, because 2 years ago he was a very promising flex player, but since having picked up support, he has not budged since from that position, so I don't know. Good and bad.
The Seron today actually not overstepping even a little bit.
Just as you say that, the caster curse might have
No,
popped off.
I was making sure his teammates were right next to him, so he doesn't die. Because oftentimes when I was complimenting the Seron about his play, he starts to overextend, got caught by some sloppy rotations. That's why I was also saying Blaze may be the best pick, because there's also the bunker to save himself, not really the longest cooldown. But in this case today, he has been actually not overstepping, knowing the rotation of the team, respecting what Genji is doing.
I mean, we talked with Seron a couple of times, and the general impression we have of him is that he's a very excitable guy. So I think he's the type where if he starts thinking that he's playing well, that he's on the top of his game, then he starts believing in himself a lot, and that sort of leads to a lot of aggressive plays.
Yeah, I would agree.
He is that type.
He
He has a superstar personality.
Of course, another way here. Goes in taunt on the Grey Mane. Silence connects, but a great mind to disengage a little as Hanjo finishes simple geometry right now. A 650. And they also have, I believe, OJ also used, not OJ, Marte also used last rites on the Grey Mane. There's an arrow on the Milky Way. Genji actually misses that Swift Strike. And Milky Way will survive because of that, providing extra shield. Well, you said 1-9, Rally. I think we know why.
That is even, wow. I don't know what to make of that. It sure is disappointing. But well, unfortunate play by Genji. Good sanctification from Tyrael. Relic doing well on the Grey Mane, as we expect of him at this point. So Feliz will not be feeling too great about their first pick Genji now, are they?
Well, GLuck didn't get to have more Overwatch heroes, but they still have Junkrat, so I guess it really makes sense.
I mean, to be fair, Genji will have plenty of opportunities to redeem himself.
In that case, it's your Genji, not our Genji. And OJ spotting this. Junkrat is away, so this could be a chance for Feliz, but Boss is still... Okay, they're actually making the rotation here. They want to contest. They know that Junkrat is away. Sonya's not even close. There's a great silence. They will not lose it. Here comes Genji with the Dragon Blade. Blue Beetle is getting caught last right. Great ice block to disregard all that damage. Here comes the Serum from the side, flanking in. There's a taunt on the Milky Way. This time, Genji will successfully get that Strip Strike, do the damage, and to get the kill.
The decision to engage by Feliz was very correct. Very well done by Feliz to take advantage of that opportunity. GLuck, very aggressive invade, wouldn't you say? Junkrat was very clearly far away. He was shown on the map even. He wasn't coming down to join his teammates a bit late. I believe that actually, had he moved immediately downwards and joined the team, because GLuck's other members did a pretty good job of stalling their losses, it could have been a pretty decent team fight for GLuck. So perhaps some miscommunication on the side of GLuck on the macro decisions there.
Yep, great decision by Feliz to engage right there. As Blue Beetle, I think he's one of the support that plays so well with the consistency, especially with his Stukov, not just the Stukov, Uther, Malfurion. Has some crazy plays, we don't really highlight that much, but he's always so consistent in the back line, and he likes playing support. That's something of a change.
That is something of a change, and I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Blue Beetle is probably the best non-top 3 individual player in HGC right now.
Not just as a support.
Yeah, just in general. I think he could absolutely perform all the required duties of a support on any one of the top 3 teams. Obviously, some of them would lose a bit of their power, but I'm saying that he's probably the only non-top 3 support to be able to meld into that completely. His only failing or weakness as a support, I would say, is that his Rhaegar is comparatively weak compared to his other heroes, and having a good Rhaegar is somewhat important. But I think he more than makes up for that with his proficiency on Stukov and Lucio in general.
And he also played some Bright Wings along with Lucio Ariel in this phase. As all the other support mostly just played Rhaegar, Uther, Malfurion the entire phase. And Ubiro and Nasang really stepping up, I think, compared to the other support. As really shining, as I also love to play support, especially when I get the last pick.
That sounds about right. I believe a lot of people love playing support when they're last pick because they love winning, but there we go.
Well, in this case, Junkrat already moving up, so they won't really lose too much. At least they couldn't really engage before 16. Pretty hard job to do, as GLuck has all the advantage there. Sanctification actually went for the Cursed Bullet, Greymane.
Somewhat understandable, considering that Varian is pretty much their only frontliner. Malthael is pretty squishy.
And also, oftentimes, Sonya and the Riptire will just pick up the kill.
And I mean, if you go for the throat here, then you run the risk of placing too much faith in your Tyrael to bail you out when you go too far in. And against a Stukov, usually that's a risky idea. So Silver Bullet's arguably the safer choice here. But
I heard something, right?
Yeah, I heard something. I think I saw something. Not too sure.
Oh, Genji trying to flank. Love that positioning from Aimer today. Always off the side, looking for that Swift Strike angle.
Zeron's heroic was pretty much blown for nothing. So GLuck will be locked to engage. Instead, they will rotate down for the bottom temple. Probably the correct move.
Feliz is totally fine with the straight. They can finish their temple and then rotate down later. Oh, I think possibly a lot better of a fight because GLuck has a sanctification. Feliz doesn't. They don't really have to come down to contest. They can just rotate to the top and continue on their macro, as they will finish the temple first.
Judging from the map movement, Malthael decided to, for a split second, he thought about just coming down and going in for the 5v5 teamfight at bottom temple, but ultimately changed his mind, went back to the temple, finished the temple, now going for the bruiser camp. Pretty good idea, I would say, since the top keep wall for GLuck is pretty much exposed at this point.
Just keep almost down. Both keeps top and bottom.
Please decide not to press the issue with that bruiser camp, though.
Ooh, they have Hanzo, so they are making sure they have the position. They know that Junkrat is on top, making his rotation. Not yet, actually clearing an extra wave. Because of that, they will lose these golems. Feliz not really starting the boss. It's very risky, of course.
Especially against the Tyrael. Probably not a very good idea.
And Junkrat can just mine away and have... Junkrat can actually rotate super easily, super quickly with the mines. Just resetting with the talent later on.
Pretty much a semi-global at the points where he gets access to that talent.
At 13. Gets another golem, but GLuck can just... GLuck has the position to actually just get these golems out, of course. If they leave it, depends on how Feliz wants to use these golems to push in.
This is somewhat reminiscent of the situation in the previous series where Ballistics had Junkrat, Malfurion, and Miracle had the Genji, but the difference is that it's Stukov on Feliz side this time, so they will not lose the war of attrition as heavily or at all, especially with Hanzo to provide comparable poke damage to Junkrat.
Coming in. Seron slightly taking damage, but OJ did not use a taunt yet, just charged in. And we're looking for that side angle once again.
Hamer's positioning is the most annoying Genji position in existence. Very difficult for GLuck to completely ignore how close he is in the vicinity.
Of course, on PTR, that Swift Strike range, -2. Maybe coming very soon. There's that course bullet onto OJ. Gets the
Immediately
heal.
healed up.
The silence continues onto Tyrio. The last right will not take the kill, and instead, Marthio's the one blown up with the Riptire.
That team fight was not coordinated very well by Feliz, I think. And the scary thing about that was it could have went much better for GLuck, right? At first, I thought the lack of a Sanctification response to the Stuck-Off ultimate would secure the safety of Malthael, but that didn't happen. GLuck get the kill on Malthael, which was very important. Get the boss, get the level 20, get all the temple shots. This could very well be core if they manage to play it out well.
It's tough. In this case, they have the Genji, but Stukov instead of Luther, which means they cannot really have the perfect protection on a single target. Look at these keeps. With the boss, we'll be going straight to the core. GLuck has 20. Feliz needs a lot more time compared to GLuck. And they can just go all the way, as they still have the Sanctification. I think that's the biggest tool they haven't stored.
Oh my god, so much poke damage is coming out from Overlord right now. Basically chunking out half of Feliz's entire HP bars by himself.
Saron going for the core. There's a Sang, and the Varian blows up! And seems like that's going to be the game boss already onto the core, and they're just making sure that enough damage continues. There's a Riptire buying some time, and the core goes down with the boss last hit. That's going to be the first game. GLuck taking first map on Sky Temple.
Junkrat really hard carrying the game when it comes to these kinds of prolonged team fights, especially in the last part of the map.
The final part, the final team fight. The pokes were so real.
Before the engage, it was absolutely insane. In retrospect, perhaps Varian should have went for the twin blades.
There will be arguments against that at the same time, Bradley. As not the biggest fan for Twin Blade, but for solo lane maybe, but as a main tank for the team, not the best idea.
Overall, I guess this game was essentially a demonstration of why Feliz probably shouldn't pick Genji. They don't really utilize the hero that well, whether it comes to abusing his presence in the laning phase part of the game, or whether it be trying to secure resets within team fights. I don't think that was an optimal Genji draft at all, even though he was first pick. So they have no excuses for drafting that kind of setup around him. Overall, pretty disappointing performance from Feliz.
Pretty good position from Aimer on that Genji, but 1 and 10 now. Not just from Aimer and Franco together on that team. Well, his positioning was very good, but never really got the chance to get those resets. Even the last rights happening when... Who's the main tank? I keep on forgetting. Tyrio had half of the HP, not really down to like the last 15%. 10% was not even close. I think they were trying to do what they have in practice, having the taunt, the silence, some damage at the last rights, but they lacked on damage. Their positioning was a little bit weird at that time being, but it seemed like Varian says go, and everyone presses what they're supposed to do, and then if it doesn't happen, and then the team fight's basically over, they really can't do the damage, can't get the reset onto Genji, and well, what they have in practice was it really worth it? Was the team comp really worth it? I don't think so in this case.
Yeah, as you said, it's not necessarily the Genji's players' fault in these kinds of engages. Of course, the Genji missed a crucial dash at the level 10 team fight, which was really hard to see. But aside from that, he didn't really make any particular mistakes. It's generally the fault of the entire team, the drafters' fault in particular for forming that very, I don't know, I would say it's a wishy-washy composition. All of the pieces looked strong and actually performed pretty well, but when it came to how they want to actually play the map, secure their win conditions, they didn't really have a particular win condition aside from let's pick heroes that we think we're good at and are good in this meta.
And then they weren't. The only other thing I would like to criticize from game one is that when GLuck, they were missing Junkrat. Of course, there was that moment where Feliz took over their own golem, backed from the invasion. But other than that, they weren't really using the time when Junkrat was away to initiate, to get a pick off maybe. They were just roaming around the map, making sure they have vision. But that was it. Other than that, they weren't really invading or forcing to go into the bottom keep wall or so. They could have used that time to do something else, I would say. But really being passive really hurt them at the later stage of game number one, I would say.
I was actually expecting the draft to feature and sort of revolve around Greymane much more in the earlier stages of the draft because I really think that Feliz operates the best as a team when they have Greymane, especially on Aimer. They have two strong Greymane players in Aimer and Frankel, although Frankel hasn't been living up to his former reputation as a Greymane master. Aimer has picked up the slack considerably well. Positive win rate